Miesha Tate is one of the most iconic names in women's mixed martial art, from her numerous encounters with Rhonda Rousey to fights against the likes of Holm and Amanda Nunes. In today's video, we'll be covering her rise to becoming a champion in the UFC and what lies next for her in her esteemed career in 2023. And make sure to stay until the end of the video, as we're going to reveal which promotion Miesha became vice president of after her first retirement in 2018. Miesha Tate was born on August the 18th, 1986 in Tacoma, Washington, where from a young age wrestling would pique her interest. After wrestling throughout high school, she eventually won the Girls State Championship, and after graduating high school, she would go on to attend Central Washington University. During her senior year, she ended up joining the Mixed Martial Arts Club, where she fell in love with the training. Shortly after finishing university, she took up fighting as an amateur despite initially feeling adverse to the idea of being punched in the face. An initially rocky start after losing her debut by an injury, Miesha would amass a record of 5 wins and 1 loss before making the move to becoming professional and having her debut. Miesha's professional debut took place in November in 2007, where at the one-night hook and shoot Women's Grand Prix, where she defeated Jan Finney by a decision, but would later on in the night end up being knocked out by a head kick from Caitlin Young. The loss of the tournament at bantamweight prompted a move up to featherweight for her next professional fight, where she would fight for a number of organisations before fighting for the freestyle cage fighting women's bantamweight title against Lisbeth Carrero, in which Miesha got the win by submission and her first taste of championship title gold in mixed martial arts. Following her title win on May 15, 2009, she would fight for the Strikeforce promotion, in which she would in the future make a name for herself in. However, at this point, she would face her second professional loss in the promotion, this time by the way of decision against Sarah Kaufman after 3 rounds. After 2 more wins in other promotions, and one of them being a title defense for the women's bantamweight freestyle cage fighting promotion, Miesha would focus all her efforts in the Strikeforce promotion in March of 2010, where she would beat Zoila Frausto to enter in the Strikeforce Women's Bantamweight Grand Prix tournament. She would go on to win the tournament by way of 2 unanimous decisions against Mayu Koala in the semi-final and Hitomi Akano in the final. The victory at the tournament granted her a title shot against Marloes Coenen and an opportunity to become a champion in a second promotion. Miesha put on a stunning performance against Coenen in the 4th round, finishing her with an arm triangle and becoming the women bantamweight Strikeforce champion. Her time as champion would be short-lived, however, and soon after, on the 3rd of March 2012, she would go up against a future rival and UFC superstar Rhonda Rousey for their first encounter, where Miesha would lose by Rousey's signature armbar late in the 1st round. After losing the title, she would fight once more in the Strikeforce promotion and win by an armbar against Julie Kedzie, before starting her esteemed career in the UFC in 2013, when the UFC bought the Strikeforce promotion and signed all fighters to their roster. Miesha's UFC debut did not go as you would expect. However, as her first fight on the 14th of April 2013, she would lose by TKO against Kat Zingano. Horrible as the loss was, she would still be awarded a title shot in her next fight against the then champion Rhonda Rousey. On the 28th of December 2013, the two would rematch in Las Vegas, Nevada. But despite the change in promotion and scenery, the fight would end again with Miesha losing by an armbar submission, this time however early in the 3rd round. Following her loss, Miesha would then work her way back up the women's bantamweight division, going on a 4-fight win streak with all being by a decision. She worked her way back up to a title shot, but this time the woman holding the belt would be Holm and not Rhonda Rousey. Holm had taken the world by storm after beating the then undefeated Rhonda Rousey by a brutal head kick knockout early on in the 2nd round. Miesha Tate now had a new opponent and another opportunity to win UFC gold while passively avenging her 2 losses to Rousey. On the 5th of March 2016 at UFC 296, Miesha would face Holm in Las Vegas, Nevada, where she would previously lost to Rousey. On the day, Miesha would get back everything she lost as 3.5 minutes into the 5th round she secured the win by choking Holm unconscious and taking on all the momentum that had built up in the women's bantamweight division. She won a Performance of the Night bonus and became one of the biggest stars in women's MMA following her win. Unfortunately, however, her next opponent would be another star in the making, and as long and difficult her journey to UFC champion was, it would all be taken away in a blink of an eye after facing her next opponent, Amanda Nunes. 4 months after winning, the title would slip out of her grasp in July 2016, where she would lose by a rear naked choke in the first round to Amanda, putting an end to her time as the UFC champion. Following her loss, she would be handed another, this time by Raquel Pennington, in the form of unanimous decision, and this loss would lead to Miesha declaring her retirement in her post-fight speech, and she wouldn't be seen in the octagon for another 3 years following it. So how did Miesha Tate spend her time after retiring from the UFC? We'll let you know in a second, but before we do, we hold a monthly shout out, and all you need to do to enter is comment "I subbed" down in the comments below to make sure you don't miss out. After her loss, she would take on the role of Vice President of the One Fighting Championship, the largest fight promotion in Asia. During her time as an executive at One, she saw a drastic change in her lifestyle. The move to another country being one, as well as shortly giving birth to her first child being another. Her time at One gave her an opportunity to pursue other things she envisioned for her life, such as starting a family, as well as the large monetary incentive from her job at One, as she outgrew what she made as a fighter by a large margin. Miesha presumably found herself a comfortable life, but the octagon just kept calling her, and she obliged in 2021, as 3 years after retirement in 2018, she would make the choice to fight again for the UFC. On the 24th of March 2021, she made her comeback against Marion Reneau and won by TKO early in the 3rd round of the fight, winning her second Performance of the Night bonus from the UFC. Fight fans are excited for the return of one of the biggest superstars in women MMA and curious how she would stack up against the newer fighters on the roster. Despite her incredible win to restart her career, her next 2 fights, which took place in late 2021 and mid-2022, would both be unanimous decision losses, with the latter, her most recent, being after a move down to flyweight to fight Lauren Murphy at 125. After 2 losses and her most recent fight against Mayra Silva falling through, Miesha's future in the UFC remains unknown, as she states the weight cut down to flyweight isn't something she wants to engage in for the future. So only time will tell what's next for Miesha Tate in her MMA journey. As usual, thanks for watching, and let us know your thoughts on who Miesha's next opponent should be in the comments below. Goodbye